Hi, classmates. My name is Abby Parsons, and I'm a CPA in Nashville, Tennessee. Today, I'm going to debate the topic concerning the SEC's deliberate and lengthy consideration and convergence to IFRS. Specifically, I'm going to debate if the SEC is helping the economy by making this a slow process, allowing for the economy to absorb and deal with the costs, or if it would be better for the economy to have a sudden switch and then recover. This is a very hot topic today in our profession because not only are we wondering if this is good for the economy, but there are also multiple people that think it's going to be great, the switch or the convergence, and there are groups of people that think we should not do it. That GAAP is the best, and we should stick with GAAP. So in my argument, you're going to hear those themes in my arguments as well, because the arguments concerning if it's going to help the economy goes hand in hand with, is it a good idea or not? So I'm first going to start arguing for my point, saying that it is helping the economy and that we should make the switch, but specifically it is helping the economy, taking this in a slow approach, allowing companies to handle all of the costs that come with this. Converging with IFRS will put U.S. investors on the same playing field as everyone else. The world economy is becoming smaller every day, and we are the only ones not using the same measurement standards as everyone else, but we are the most influential market in the world. That does not make the most sense. Investors and practitioners have had ample opportunity so far. This has been in the making for many years, over 20 since the 80s, and it even was introduced in the 70s. And we have had many years at this point to start having new textbooks in college. I know in college I did learn IFRS. I learned IFRS when I took the CPA exam. That's an excellent way to teach the new generation so the convergence won't be a huge deal for them. In addition, companies have had time to send their people to training in CPE. They've had time to hire consultants and get new softwares that can even help with the convergence and the new standards. So this has been a very long process, and I know it's not all on purpose, but I do partly think it is, because there's a lot of costs that are going with this. For the convergence, it will also allow capital inflow of international investments, since the financial statements will finally at last be comparable with everyone else around the world. This will further reduce interest rates and lead to economic growth in the U.S. So while the burden and the cost of implementing IFRS is very heavy right now, it will pay off in about 1 to 3 years, in the research that I have read says. And so that's really a really short recovery time. Research has also shown that firms that have educated staff and now apply IFRS have shown less earnings management, a more timely loss recognition, and more value relevance in accounting as compared to U.S. domestic firms that only follow GAAP. Firms adhering to IFRS generally exhibited higher quality than when they followed GAAP previously. So we saw that learning curve, and we saw that them implementing IFRS made the firms better as a whole, educated the people, educated the staff, and it made their work better quality. 113 nations, including Australia, China, India, Mexico, and Canada, have already adopted or plan to adopt IFRS. The SEC also allows foreign firms that sell stock in the U.S. to file their financial statements using IFRS. And Robert Bunting, president of the International Federation of Accountants and a partner at the Moss Adams accounting firm in Seattle, quoted, "It is hard to find a trading partner of the U.S. that does not use IFRS. This further proves that we need to get on board. We need to be with the rest of the world in developing the top set of standards, and that will give everyone comparability, relevance across the board that will help the U.S. economy stimulate, because investors will understand what they're looking at as compared to other financial statements around the world. Also, as a required act in 2003 by Congress, they issued a study on the adoption of the principles-based accounting system, which is what IFRS is, while GAAP is rules-based. The study showed that global accounting standardization through the convergence would lead to the following effects, and this is a Congress study. Greater comparability for investors across firms and industries on a global basis, reducing listing costs for companies with multiple listings, increased competition among exchanges, better global resource allocation and capital formation, lowered costs of capital, and a higher global economic growth rate. Well, this is exactly what we are wanting under the convergence. And by taking as many years as it's taken, it's getting to a point where we kind of need to make a decision one way or the other. But by it taking a long time, these huge costs of the convergence are being handled. Companies at this point have done most of the legwork. Everyone now is just kind of waiting. I know at trainings and CPE, everyone's learning, everyone's on board. We're just kind of waiting for the time. My last point for why this is helping the economy, taking it slow, and for the convergence is when the SEC was under Christopher Cox. He believed that the future was leading toward a single set of global accounting standards. He believed that the transition would be the best thing for American corporations in the global market, and that initiated his push for the convergence in the latter part of his term as SEC commissioner. With better access to capital, more competition in the market, greater comparability of financial statements, and unlimited investment opportunities, he understood why the move to IFRS would be the best thing, not only for corporations, but for the U.S. economy as a whole. So that's my argument on why this is good for the economy. I know it's a heavy cost burden in the present, not really as much today, but in the past 10, 20 years it has been, but we've already absorbed those costs. We have already moved on. Everything's in place and ready to go. So my argument now against this on why taking a long time is hurting the economy, which kind of goes with why the convergence is hurting the economy. The learning curve cost for the public and the investors is almost too big of a curve that we can't get over. A lot of specialists and a lot of researchers just believe that the U.S. is very happy with GAAP, and the mindset that GAAP is already the best and we shouldn't converge is a really big hindrance on us actually converging. The U.S. is not embracing the standards, the convergence, practitioners, and the public and investors. I think academics are a little bit because they're used to new changes. This is what they're made for. They're made for educating and updating students with the newest items, but practitioners definitely do not want to leave GAAP. And practitioners in public accounting and industry accounting, corporate accounting, with them not wanting to make it, that's a very, very heavy pushback. The long march to IFRS is grueling, and the preparations are very expensive. Companies need at least 2 to 3 years to update their communication and software and to train thousands of financial professionals. CPAs and investors need to intensely study global accounting principles, and business schools would have to update textbooks, and older accounting professionals would have to get on board with these new standards. And for me, thinking about that, my dad's a CPA. He's 56. He's very intelligent. He could learn these new things, but he would hate it. And the accounting profession in general, there are more older people than there are younger people. And so when you've been doing something for 30 and 40 years, it's really hard to make an extreme switch like we're talking about here. And while the large companies have prepared and have already set aside all of these costs. Companies like the one I audit every day, their net income is anywhere from 2 to 20 million. That's the primary market that I personally audit. That expense for them to get new software, to get new communication systems, it's almost impossible. Most of them operate on mid-level operating systems like Great Plains, Intact, things like that. And it was a huge ordeal for them to get that initiated in the first place and to get a new system that also handles IFRS. I have some clients that by far would not be able to make that switch. And in the US, I mean, the small business owner is the backbone of our community. And while these sound like big dollar items, they are technically small businesses. Almost every one of my companies is owned by a family. The SEC's chief accountant, James Schner, sounded a similar alarm when he discussed a talk at Baruch College. Though many constituents still find the idea of a single set of global standards attractive, he said on a practical level, and I quote, "There is virtually no support to have the SEC mandate IFRS for all registrants. There is little support for the SEC to provide an option allowing domestic companies to prepare their financial statements under IFRS." So that right there is kind of voicing the voice of the people. This is too expensive for our small and mid-level companies. We have to re-educate multiple generations of people. We have to re-educate professors that are now teaching the new generation. We have to do new softwares, new textbooks. It's a huge ordeal. Many in the accounting world have obviously decided that they are against the convergence. Donna Fisher, the senior vice president of tax for the American Bankers Association, she said that when she spoke of IFRS years ago, accounting firms were telling the banks, you need to get ready for these new standards. It really is happening. It's going to be soon. And now she says, we are not hearing any of that. It's gone completely silent. Again, that is just voicing the voice of the people. And in this, you may think, well, the SEC is going to go ahead and go. But from the research and the reading that I've done, it sounds like they really are taking seriously the practitioner's view, industry accountants, corporate accountants, CFOs, CEOs, academics. It sounds like they're taking their opinions very seriously. Joanne Golden, she sits on the Society of Financial Accounting Standards Committee. She said that IFRS was, and I quote, a tougher sell than anyone thought, largely because of fundamental philosophical disagreements over what accounting standards should do and be. The main bone of contention, whether standards should be primarily rules-based, as it is with GAAP, or primarily principles-based, like IFRS. We like to think of ourselves as free spirits, as with the principles-based. But the U.S. is a society that is very litigious, so preparers want very detailed guidance. So I had not actually thought of that before. I thought, GAAP kind of to me seems principles-based because there are a few areas that can be open to interpretation, but not like IFRS. There are 25,000 pages in GAAP. There are 2,000 in IFRS. So that tells you right there how much interpretation is open in IFRS. I did not think about how the U.S. says, oh, your financial statements are not clear. It caused me to have a bad investment. I'm suing. I have found so much research on how, since the U.S. is a very litigious, how that has made so many people push back on the convergence because they say our company is going to get sued every time we do something that someone else interpreted differently. And because of that, we're not willing to take on the convergence. We're not willing to go to a principles-based accounting. A study that I read showed that All respondents felt that audit costs would increase due to the conversion. Professional corporate accountants believe that the cost of auditing work and corporate work will increase because of the learning curve. They do, however, think that the corporate costs will go down after the learning curve, but we do believe, after reading this research, that audit costs and public accounting costs will remain high because there are so much areas in this principle-based accounting that's open for interpretation. So the hours will be higher since the auditors will have to understand how the company came to that conclusion. And as a public accountant, our work is based on the hours that we put in. And so if I have to understand what your thought process was, why you jumped on this theory and how you decided to recognize it, and then evaluate if that's actually the right way to do it, that's going to take much longer than just saying, this is how you do it in GAAP. I need the support. I can test it. So that is something that the economy will suffer from because there will just be higher costs in general in the public accounting side, and audit costs are already a huge burden on companies, and we know that, and it's only going to increase. So while the SEC is taking a long time to make the convergence happen, it is not necessarily helping the economy because the small, medium-sized companies still have to put significant capital up to actually be ready to converge. The large companies have gotten ready. The small companies have not. And it doesn't matter really how long they have because they don't have the money to do it. And so taking a long time is not really helping them. Again, taking a long time is not really helping the practitioners because we're kind of learning here, we're kind of learning there, but no one's actually ready to go audit these standards. It's going to be a huge learning curve. I had the IFRS in college and I had a little bit, in the CPA exam, and in college too, it was very informal. So that way, and I was not in college that long ago, only 4 years. And so how professors are teaching it's going to have to vastly change. The textbooks will need to change. So there's a lot of costs that still need to be met. And I don't think people are actually going to do that stuff until they see that the real convergence is on the horizon. At this point, people are losing hope. At this point, people don't really think it's going to happen. And so all the mid-sized companies, all the people bearing the bulk of the costs, those costs have not occurred until there's an actual date on the horizon. So the end of my debate, which side that I actually lean toward, is I actually lean toward that it is helping the economy taking a long time because I have said a lot of my small to medium-sized clients haven't done anything to prepare for this, and they probably won't, like I just said, unless they can tell that it's actually on the horizon and it's actually going to happen. But I think the overall economy is being helped by taking a long time because then if they do see it on the horizon, they still, by being slow, will have time to prepare. This is a hard topic to discuss on if it's helping the economy by going slow or not. And I see very clearly both sides of the argument, but I don't think that it's hurting the economy by going slow. So that's why I'm yielding to the side of it is helping the economy by going slowly. And I just think that really the SEC needs to have an actual date if this is going to happen or not, because it's kind of becoming a joke. I have professors, even in undergrad, and they would say, this is never going to happen. This has taken so long. And now they had big goals to meet by 2014. Now it's 2017, and we still have no idea if this is going to go through. So I do see progress, like, new revenue recognition standards this year. Recently, in the past couple of years, they took out extraordinary items. I mean, those are slow converging. Those are slow progress toward the standards and toward convergence, but they were on the list of significant differences between GAAP and IFRS. So, I mean, progress is being made, but for a lot of the companies, professors, schools, CPE professionals to actually have a burden of these costs and to be able to spread them out over the next couple of years, we need a real timeline. We need an accurate timeline so we can do that. And then it will help the economy. Pumping money into the economy with CPE, with students that know IFRS, that helps the economy, pumping money into it like that. But people are just going to sit on their hands if they don't see a real timeline. And I think that's where we're at today. So thank you for watching my debate. I hope it's been informative to you, and I hope it's helped you form your opinion on if this slow process is helping or hurting our economy. And I appreciate you for watching. Thank you.